Cost of living has skyrocketed. It seems there is no respite as fuel prices are set to increase tonight. A panel of experts will join me this hour to discuss what can be done to alleviate the financial pressures in a low economic growth environment. That's all ahead, but we begin here. Soaring fuel prices and poor road conditions can severely impact the freight industry. This is the word from industry players. Two of the key issues that slow down economic growth in our country. They've also created a significant challenge for the commercial industry, affecting issues like transportation costs. The CEO of the Road Freight Association, Gavin Kelly, joining me in studio now just to unpack this story a little bit further. Gavin, welcome to studio. First time I'm interviewing in studio. Good afternoon. Thanks for coming.
Thanks, Dan. I think we haven't seen one another in the studio before COVID.
Yes, before. That's the story of COVID. Now, tell us, how are you impacted? How is your industry impacted by a number of factors? I mean, fuel prices, the state of our roads.
Well, Dan, the first thing that we're talking about today, obviously, is the fuel price. And when the fuel price climbs, that means you and I are going to pay more for the things that are transported by road. That's just the nature of things. So we're going to see price increases starting to happen. It's going to have an effect on inflation, which is what we were hoping wasn't going to happen. So there's going to be an upward pressure in terms of that. But there are a number of other factors that influence the freight industry and roads and the condition of roads, delays. Those are also parts of the effect that drive costs up.
Yeah, the costs go up when the fuel goes up. I mean, the cost of diesel, the trucks use diesel. I mean, I was on the N4 just the other day on to and from Mozambique, and the number of trucks you see on the road, and each and every one of them uses diesel. I mean, just that amount, R2.80, I think is going up by tonight. It's just going to cause so much pressures on the overhead cost of the business.
Yes, it does. And we're now sitting at roughly 55% of the operational cost of moving a truck is now because of diesel costs. We've seen a 6.3% increase month on month in terms of that. And obviously that's going to factor into the delivery costs and what you and I will pay at a retail store.
Yeah, I mean, the value chain, I mean, it's you put in the fuel in the truck, you have to go from point A to point B. Increased costs invariably get passed on to us, the consumer.
Yeah, and the biggest problem, Dan, is that a lot of transporters don't get paid immediately for that leg. There's a 30 or a 60 or even in some cases a 90-day delay. So especially small transporters, but there are big transporters too, but especially small transporters need to find the cash to keep that transport going. So I might move something for you today, and let's say I spend 2,000 or 3,000 or 4,000 rand on fuel. You don't pay me immediately. You say, well, I'll pay you at the end of the month. And of course, that's happening every day. So I've got this rolling account in terms of increasing fuel that I need to find resources for from somewhere.
I mean, as a Road Freight Association, you've got bigger companies. I mean, you see them with names. You've got fleets, large fleets. Are they in a position to bulk buy and negotiate a better price for them to supply the fleet? I mean, some of them travel long distances to Cape Town, to Durban, Richards Bay, to Maputo.
Definitely, there are those fleets who have that ability. I think it's called economies of scale. That's what the economists will tell us. And if you're going to be buying 1 million litres in a month, yes, you're going to get a better price. But make no mistake, it's not 50% or 40% discount. It's going to be a small amount. And of course, you need the capital to buy that.
Yeah, and I mean the trucking industry, your freight industry also links up with the agricultural sector, very not just the mining sector with the coal from Mpumalanga all the way to Richards Bay and Maputo. Those sectors as well are invariably also affected when fuel price goes up like this.
Yes, they will be. And then you find load shedding has another strange but real effect on transport, on trucks, because when you bring refrigerated goods or goods that need to have a controlled temperature environment, suddenly your truck is idling longer, or depending on the equipment you have, you might have a generator on your trailer that runs off diesel. So your costs keep multiplying.
Yeah, well, I mean, what are the prospects here? Because some economists are already warning, because of high international crude oil prices in this low growth economic environment we have, pressure on inflation, we might have this last much longer than anticipated. In the medium to long term, what's your concern as an association about the costs?
Well, I think we've really got four concerns. And the first concern is the cost of fuel, of moving freight around the country, of looking after our cold storage, and of storage itself. So, there's also a cost within distribution centres, within moving between intermodal. So the cost of fuel is an issue. And that seems to have a long-term trajectory in terms of increase. We're already at about $84, $85 a barrel. We've heard that Russia and Saudi Arabia are cutting back on supply. The second thing for us is security. There are attacks that happen on trucks all around the country, and the reasons for that aren't always the same. So security is a huge issue for us.
When you mention security, I'm thinking, how also do you secure your fuel supply? Because, there'll be people wanting to get their hands on it.
Oh, yes. It's any sort of cargo that you're moving, and depending on the time of the year, and a lot of people don't really know this, but foodstuffs are just as targeted as fancy electronic goods or as cash or as fuel. So you now have this added pressure in terms of ensuring that those high value, scarce goods are secured and looked after. So security is an issue.
Yeah, with the fuel prices hiking up the way they're going to do, especially diesel, $2.80 at midnight tonight, Gavin, your outlook as an industry, as a freight industry, when you look ahead, is it gloomy? Are you hopeful? Is there any sense of optimism somewhere? Can you see any silver lining?
Well, Dan, I think we're going to be in for a tight short term. Definitely we're going to have to ride through this fuel increase and see where we go towards the end of the year. But I think in the long term, those prices will come down. There's been some very, very good exploration happening around our coasts. And I think we're going to, with the BRICS agreement, get to a far more favorable place in the medium to long term.
Thank you very much. That's Gavin Kelly, CEO of the Road Freight Association. Well,